Something stinks on the ISS. Emily Callendrelli becomes the 100th woman in space. And the topic of the show, should spaceflight fans be astronomy fans too? All coming up on the next Orbital Edge. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Orbital Edge News, a brand new show for passionate spaceflight fans. I am your host, Chad, and you know the drill, recent launches. Starting off the list of launches is the China Long March 2C rocket. Let's get this footage rolling. This launch occurred on November 24th at 23:39 UTC and is carrying the SuperView Neo 3 and 4, which sport two high-resolution radar satellites to serve rich data for urban safety, emergency management, and marine tracking. Love to see these China launches be more than like 8 seconds long like they used to be. This is probably like a good 20-30 seconds. Alright, next up, we have an Electron rocket.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Beginning pitch over.
That was an epic liftoff. We don't get a whole lot of those from RocketLabs. Very beautifully done. This launch occurred at 3:55 a.m. UTC on November 24th at the RocketLab Launch Complex 1, Pad B in Mahia, New Zealand. This mission is nicknamed Ice Ice Baby and is carrying the Kinesis IoT satellite. And IoT stands for Internet of Things. Amazing, amazing shot right there. Wow, you can just see the whole island of New Zealand all right there, and then the side-by-side payload separation. These guys have definitely upped their game on their launch coverage, and I do commend them for that. All right. And the last launch on our list is the premiere launch of the ZQ-2E rocket, which does come from China. Now, a fun fact about this rocket, it was the first liquid methane rocket to actually reach orbit. Sorry, Vulcan fans. This rocket does have 2 stages and is the first stage. And the first stage is powered by 4 TQ-12 engines, and the second stage is powered by a new TQ-15A engine. So far, a total of 4 of these flights have been logged for this launch vehicle, with 3 successes, and we love seeing this rocket because it's something different than the Long March series we're normally used to, and it is moderately capable without being too much of a small sat rocket. Let's move on to our space news, and we have some epic stuff coming out of Blue Origin. So we do have some awesome milestone updates that is coming out of Blue Origin. And the well-known and renowned Emily Callendrelli, also known as Space Gal, she flew on the Blue Origin New Shepard rocket and became the 100th woman to reach space. Now, who is Emily? She has a space show called Exploration Outer Space, and this did air on Fox. You can actually see her show now if you have Roku. That's like the only place that I know of that you can actually catch her show. I do highly recommend it. They're just short 20-30 minute shows of just pure science of spaceflight and astronomy. Now we're going to show you in this clip here what she went through in her epic adventure, and there's a lot of emotion here, so buckle up.
That's our planet. Oh my God, that's space.
Look at that Earth. Look at that Earth.
We're in space right now. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yes, Earth is a planet. Once you've actually been in that point of view that Emily has been in, she definitely have that overview effect. That point of view, it just, I can understand how emotional you can get when you see that the roundness of Earth and the fact that your feet is not touching the planet, and therefore you're saying, wow, Earth is a planet. That is absolutely crazy. And we love discussing stuff and covering news like this on the show. We definitely know this is going to get you excited about space. And of course, I would have to personally go up in space myself to prove to myself that the over effect is real, and you can absolutely get emotional about it. Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the topic of the show: should space fans be astronomy fans too? Stay tuned. Don't go away. And welcome back. So our topic of the show is why rocket fans should be astronomy fans, and astronomy fans should be rocket fans too. Spaceflight obviously enables any astronomy effort when it does call for exploration outside of the use of a visible telescope. Without rockets, you don't have any planetary exploration beyond a visible telescope. We aren't going to launch rockets for the fun of it. I mean, we do that in Kerbal Space Program, of course. However, to launch a rocket, you definitely need to have a viable payload that people will actually care about. Some of the factors we're going to go through here are kind of like mainly, I put in like 4 here. You've got the left brain, right brain perspective on things. So, space flight fans, people who like the rockets, they're less data driven than astronomers are. They're more about bending the metal, building things, having something tangible, and then seeing those results visually. Astronomers, on the other hand, work mostly with the data. Everything they do is either a calculation or it's a bunch of numbers that try to explain something else. I can tell you an example of using numbers that actually painted a picture of Mars back in the 70s. A series of numbers in a certain sequence determined what color a pixel was on a photo of Mars, or like the section of Mars. So that should give you an idea of what I kind of meant by numbers and data and what astronomers actually deal with on a daily basis. Now, the second thing, it's going to be really short, it's political. Most of the politics come from rockets, and things get less political with spacecrafts, such as your Earth telescopes. There's less politics in commercialized things like internet satellites, GPS satellites, and just things that help consumers and help earn our taxpayer money back. So the third thing has to do with collaboration. You've got your astronomers that need to team up with people who build the rocket. Obviously, let's take James Webb Telescope, for example. You got to worry about things like vibrations and the very volatile components in that telescope. And if your astronomers aren't communicating with your rocket science, they're going to just build any rocket to launch the James Webb Telescope without any regards to how fragile the components are in that telescope. And if you build the rocket without any sort of noise dampening. It's going to definitely ruin what could be a $5 billion or a $10 billion telescope. So losing money like that is just not acceptable at any, and losing money like that is not acceptable by anybody. So definitely collaboration is key here in getting the data across from the astronomers over to the people building the rockets. And then the payload specialist needs to be able to interpret that data and construct the payload bay that will absolutely make sure that the telescope is not only sound dampened, but it is structurally sound inside, and it won't move around during the launch, depending on when it's in the atmosphere. You've got max Q, and then when you're in space, when you decouple the stages, for example, I'll just use this right here to show this is a decoupling action, and even that, they have explosive bolts that separate these two. Even that activity itself can ruin the spacecraft inside the payload fairing. So we definitely need to be mindful there, and collaboration is definitely key. And finally, we have it's basically public discourse, which simply means how are you communicating your interest in space or astronomy to friends and family? This is where things get really, really interesting, because let's just say you're trying to say, hey, this cool thing is going to go up in space, but then you only know about rockets. So let's just say there's a new rocket that's going up, and you explain, okay, this is why this rocket is cool, but then the person you're explaining it to doesn't know much about space. They're not fully interested in about space, and then they ask you an astronomy question about it. Like, well, what's this going to do in space? And then you're going to be all like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about the payload in the rocket to explain or answer this question. So it's really important that you know some basic form of astronomy so you know what you're launching and why you're launching. Now, let me tell you a personal story. I had Mom come down and visit me at the Cape, and she saw her first launch, and I know all about the rockets and everything. I don't know much about the payloads and the satellite that is whatever it was supposed to do. And then, yes, Mom asked about the payload. She asked, is this thing going to help, go to a planet and do whatever it needs to do? And that's where it draws a blank in me. And yeah, I've definitely been improving over time on that, definitely getting more interested in things astronomy. And in the future, we are going to bring on an astronomer, a guest astronomer on the show. Probably start this person out as a co-host or remotely on the space TV here. I haven't finalized my plan on that yet. But, my screen shut off on me. So that telling me that I need to move on to the next item, which is the Reddit community was also asked the same question too. So why Wingcore on Reddit says this: astronomers should be rocket fans because rockets have delivered every single space telescope to orbit. Astronomers should be interested in the future of rocketry because that will bring much larger and cheaper telescopes, especially with 150 tons to orbit in a fully reusable configuration. That one absolutely struck a resonance with me. I'm on a better path now on definitely learning more about astronomy just based on that comment alone. I mean, caring about this stuff does lower the cost of spaceflight, and that's definitely what we need to do. So you couldn't have said it any better than that. Now we want to take the flip side and understand why astronomers should be rocket fans. Also, consider what's going on with Starlink. this is making it really tough for astronomers to kind of, you almost got this faction created between the spaceflight community and the astronomy community, because Starlink is now taking up so much real estate in low Earth orbit. It's giving astronomers a tough time to definitely search the cosmos for new discoveries. And one big program that does get affected by Starlink is the near-Earth object observation endeavors. This is really important that we know what's coming at us at super high speeds. And recently there's been some near misses from small space rocks, but the problem is we've missed it. And I think it's because of Starlink. We're supposed to be all about this early warning and, hey, 10 days out, this is going to happen. And then we find out it's already happened. It's already flown by. And then now we're hearing about it. So that's pretty crazy. And I'm definitely concerned, about, what Starlink could actually do, as a worst case scenario. And remember, we got the Kuiper constellation that the New Glenn rocket is supposed to start delivering as well. But time will tell on that. We'll definitely be covering that more in the future, episodes. So we are going to take a quick break again. And when we come back, comments from the last show. Welcome back. We would like to thank all of our subscribers and commenters that help make this show engaging. With that said, we are in orbit, and our last show was about Elon Musk having to step down, and our first comment will come from YouTube. And this is from Yesua5707. Obviously not. None of the founders stepped down from their plantations. Well, to be fair, Elon has not been very active in SpaceX recently, with this whole government thing that he's involved with. And but here's what I think. He probably won't step down unless he has to. Once he starts taking taxpayer money, and he's doing this for his own gain, then we've got some serious problems. And he doesn't have to step down, but if he doesn't and he is taking taxpayer money like that, it is going to catch up to him, and eventually the problems will be waiting for him. Now we're going to move on to the next comment, and this is our first ever Blue Sky comment. And this is from Fogo von Slack. And interesting timing, isn't it? Musk's Department of Government Efficiency rolls out a plan, and suddenly NASA's future is on the chopping block, right as SpaceX stands to gain. This isn't about efficiency, it's about funneling public resources into private pockets. Now, this is definitely what we have been concerned about, especially on the show, that last episode that we did. Now, this is definitely what we've been concerned about. It is a worst case scenario considering we put too much trust in Elon. This was never about replacing NASA, as the worst case scenario seems to point out. Without NASA, there is no space program. There's no exploration. There's absolutely nothing without NASA. And there really isn't anything left but commercialized activity in space and zero exploration. What's considered commercialization, actually? We do need to kind of define this. Basically, for example, it'd be spamming low Earth orbit with internet satellites. That'd be one thing. It has nothing to do with exploration. And of course, the Kuiper internet satellites are going to fall into that same category. Just imagine those satellites trying to share the same space with Starlink. I don't know. We definitely have to do more research on our end to see if that's actually truly feasible. And I understand they're trying to do competition, but I don't know. It's low Earth orbit, and they're already having problems. There's definitely some space debris. There've definitely been some recent International Space Station close calls recently, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. There'll definitely be future episodes when we're going to discuss those concerns about Kuiper and Starlink and where that's actually headed. But with that said, space programs that devolve into just launching Internet of Things type of satellites, and even CubeSats for that matter, that's boring and that's not even exciting. You take the exploration away and no one's going to get excited about space anymore. So that is going to wrap up the comments, and we've reached escape velocity, which means that completes the show. But before I go, I need to give the answer to the orbital trivia. Now, this one's going to surprise you, but the answer is, this is from India. It was the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle from Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO. It was launched on February 15th of 2017. It deployed 104 unique satellites into orbit. And remember, the way we asked that question was unique satellites, not the same thing. Otherwise, they would just give this to a Falcon 9 and a Starlink. So, hopefully, you guys learned a little bit on the show, and I'm going to definitely call it quits here. Do stick around at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to premiere After Dark. So what that is going to be is just going to be me talking, nothing scripted. I'm going to just try to explain the direction of the show and things like that. Just absolute cool stuff. So with that said, we will see you next time.